Today was the day that all of us as basketball fans have been waiting for. NBA basketball is officially back, and the first two games of the season have been played. We got to watch two star-studded matchups filled with intrigue as the Philadelphia 76ers faced off against the Boston Celtics to start off the night, and then the reigning champion Golden State Warriors matched up with the Los Angeles Lakers, and now that they're both finished, there's plenty to talk about. Obviously, the NBA season is long, with 82 games to be played, but that doesn't mean that we can't take note of some interesting early activity, and for today's video, we'll be doing just that. We will be discussing 4 of the most important lessons we learned from tonight's slate that will be important to monitor throughout the year, and what it could mean moving forward for every team and individual mentioned. Before we start though, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel, as all support is very much appreciated. Now with that being said, let's begin. The first thing we learned from the opening night of the season is that the Boston Celtics do not look fazed at all by the loss of head coach Ime Udoka. The Celtics had an incredibly weird offseason where, despite making objectively good moves to improve the team, they found themselves in the media for the wrong reasons, as their head coach Ime Udoka got involved in a scandal that resulted in him getting suspended for the season, with his future now also being very much up in the air. Udoka was brought in last season to replace Brad Stevens, and his presence and philosophy he preached got them to buy in and emerge as the very best defensive team in the NBA on the way to an NBA Finals run. They did that behind this stout defense, and there was decent reason to believe that losing him could hurt them both in the locker room and out on the court, but in Game 1 of this new year, they picked right back up where they left off without missing a single beat. They absolutely hounded Joel Embiid brilliantly, throwing double teams his way every time he touched it. They frustrated him and got him into uncomfortable positions, and ultimately that was enough to comfortably win the game. It looked a lot like what they did defensively to Kevin Durant in the playoffs last year, so if they can continue to perform as dominantly on defense without Udoka coaching, then they will absolutely still be a force in the Eastern Conference, and Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown also are emerging offensively to make it even better. The next lesson learned from opening night is that James Harden proved that he is definitely not washed at all yet. Last season was a tough one for James Harden as his scoring average hit the lowest that it had been since his time in Oklahoma City. He noticeably looked a step slower than he previously did in other recent years, and the question of whether or not he was starting to wash up was legitimately being asked by those around the league. In his defense though, he was struggling with a nagging hamstring issue that had been plaguing him since the 2021 playoffs, and because of it, he was never really able to get his body fully right when the new year began. Dating all the way back to training camp before last season began, Harden himself was very vocal about how his hamstring issues kept him from training in the offseason, and he even said in an interview at the time that he wasn't going able to perform at the level that he was used to performing because of this. Then, wouldn't you know it, he struggled last season, so he clearly knew that his body wasn't right at the time. Now fast forward back to the present, and we heard him come into training camp this year with a completely different, more upbeat tone as he talked in interviews about how it felt good to be able to get back to training properly and resting his hamstring fully in the offseason, and he came into the year in better shape because of it. He told us all that he would be back, and tonight he put his money where his mouth was, despite the loss to the Celtics. He was crossing Celtic players out of their shoes, he was knocking down step-back threes, he was converting N1s, he was getting into the paint more fluidly than he did a season ago, and he just looked more comfortable running the show out there. If the Sixers are getting this Harden consistently throughout the year, then they will definitely be able to shake off this opening night loss and win a ton of games. The next lesson we learned from the NBA's opening night is that James Wiseman looks good. James Wiseman was a huge mystery coming into this year, as his rookie season was filled with a lot of inconsistency and injury, and a year and a half later we had no idea what to expect out of him. In the NBA, the only real way you can expect players to improve is by playing through their mistakes as a young guy and learning from it, so Wiseman needed minutes under his belt and he wasn't getting it the last year and a half. Obviously though, the Warriors have proven to have an incredible development staff behind the scenes, consistently finding gems and getting the most out of them, so even though we as fans couldn't see all of the work that Wiseman was putting in, he was clearly working hard to get back to this point. As the number 2 pick in the 2020 NBA draft, he's coming in with lofty expectations, and I think he's in a comfortable role to thrive in this season as the team's backup center that will run a lethal 2-man game with Jordan Poole against opposing second units. One thing I really want to see from Wiseman tonight was how he would hold up defensively, because he has all of the physical tools to dominate that end as a 7-foot center with a massive wingspan, but he struggled to stay poised on that end as a rookie at times. But tonight, he aced the eye test in that regard, contesting shots well, getting an impressive block, and grabbing a ton of rebounds. Offensively, he definitely still is a work in progress, and missing all of his free throws shows that his touch still needs work, but all in all, I think he's about to make a big impact on the team off the bench this season, which will surely be a welcome sight. And finally, the last lesson learned from the opening night of play is that the Lakers just don't have enough this season. What I mean by this is that, as a franchise with as much notoriety as the Lakers have, they always have lofty expectations. With LeBron James also on the roster, those expectations rise tenfold. As long as LeBron is in the league, he will always be seeking more championships, but the unfortunate truth of the matter is that the Lakers do not have enough around LeBron and Anthony Davis to realistically do so. Russell Westbrook and his situation with the team has obviously dominated headlines all season long because Russ is a polarizing big-name player and former MVP winner, but believe it or not, it's not all Russ's fault. Last season, the Lakers had Malik Monk as a spark plug scoring option, and when he left in free agency this summer, the team replaced him with Lonnie Walker, who is basically a less efficient version of him. Patrick Beverley and Dennis Schroeder were good additions, but not necessarily ceiling raisers. Their front court is weaker than it has been in a long time, with players like Juan Toscano Anderson and Dwayne Gabriel filling those roles, and with LeBron James no longer being the guy who can pull off Herculean carry jobs, the Lakers might now be in trouble. The Warriors were intentionally not playing their starters heavy minutes last night in order to get them back into game shape, and the game still got out of hand quickly, so we very well could be in for a repeat of what happened to the Lakers last season. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below what stood out to you the most during the games tonight. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.